Hey guys, it's Adam, Science Tutor, and today we're going to be talking about the skull and the cranial base and the different foramen inside the cranial base. So, we're talking about Nasal Palatine foramen. That's going to be our first one. So the nasal palatine foramen is going to have our nasal palatine nerve, which comes off our sphenopalatine, coming off of our maxillary nerve, which is cranial nerve V2. It's also going to have our nasal palatine vessels. Then we have right here, we're going to have our greater palatine foramen, and that's going to have our greater palatine nerve and vessels. Then that little dot right below it is going to be our lesser palatine foramen, and that's going to have our lesser palatine nerve and vessels. Then we're going to come over here. This is our Foramen Ovale. The Foramen Ovale is going to have our lesser petrosal nerve, our accessory meningeal artery, and our cranial nerve V3, which is our mandibular nerve. The little hole right next to it, this guy right here, is going to be our Foramen Spinosum. The Foramen Spinosum is going to have our middle meningeal artery and our recurrent mandibular nerve. So the mandibular nerve goes in through the Foramen Ovale and back out through the spinosum. Here we will have our foramen lacerum. The foramen lacerum is going to carry or have our deep petrosal nerve and our a meningeal branch of the ascending pharyngeal artery. This canal right here is going to be our pterygoid canal, which is going to have our pterygoid branch off of the maxillary artery. And it's also going to have our pterygoid nerve. There's going to be a fissure right here, which is hard for you guys to see. It's a fissure on its way out. And the fissure on its way out is going to be called a petrotympanic fissure. And it's going to have our tympanic branch of our maxillary artery and our cornae tympani nerve from our facial nerve. So our cornae tympani nerve from our facial nerve. That's the main thing to know, and think of it as going out towards our ear. Right here, this should be more pronounced and quite longer, but it's deteriorated. This is going to be our stylomastoid foramen. Our stylomastoid foramen is going to have our facial nerve or cranial nerve 7 coming out of it. So cranial nerve 7. That's a stylomastoid foramen. Next, we're going to talk about this guy right here. So this is going to be our posterior condylar, posterior, because it's on the posterior side, condylar canals, and it's just going to have our emissary veins going out of it. This big guy right here is going to be where our brainstem is, and it is going to have our brainstem. It is also going to have our vertebral arteries and veins, and our anterior and posterior spinal artery and veins. It'll also have our cranial nerve 11, our spinal accessory nerve, exiting it. So the spinal nerve 11 is exiting it. And then, yeah, that is it for that. It's going to have our alar ligaments to help hold it down and get it stuck as well. The alar ligaments. So one last thing. If we tilt our head over, we're going to have that hole right there. And what's going on through there is external acoustic meatus foramen, and that is going to hold our tympanic membrane or our eardrum, and that makes sense because it's next to our ear. So cool. That is the cranial base. If you guys have any questions, let me know or leave a comment below.